What is up, you guys? Welcome to Illumination Lab. My name is Justin, and today we'll be going over this spider I made within Cinema 4D. My goal, like always, is to walk through my process. First, I'll show you the reference I use, how I modeled this asset, and the colors I utilized to bring it all together. This is an experimental project. I've never done anything like this before, so let's see how it goes today. So without further delay, let's get into it. So with Halloween coming up, I wanted to try something that was a little bit different, a little bit more on the spooky side, I would say. So I actually found this reference here. It's a really cool looking spider. It looks like someone handmade this. So I thought it was really cool. What I liked about this was it was very different looking than obviously your traditional spider. I liked how on the legs here you can see all the green mold, or even just like I guess it could be grass that is on the actual spider. And then you do have the whites, or like it's almost like a bone looking white for its legs. And then of course, closer you get into the body, you have more of the orange brown color, similar to the body here. And then at the back end of the body, they have this really cool looking flower that's, kind of wilted a little bit, with a lot of these different looks like leaves as well too. So I thought this was really interesting to look at. I wanted to try something that was a little bit similar to this. However, like always, we're going to try to mix it up and of course make it our own. So we're going to use this as a reference. I'm going to call back on this, especially when I'm looking at the body and the legs. But again, we're going to try to make a few different changes to, of course, make it our own. This is someone else's work, so I don't want to directly copy it. So let's jump into Cinema 4D and see what we can do. So to start off today, I think I'm going to start this project with the head. So I'm going to bring in a sphere here. Now I'm going to make this model a little bit more on the smaller side. So I'm going to shrink down the radius here of the sphere. Now, if we look at the reference, we can see the head portion of the spider is similar almost to like a bottom of an egg, where it is spherical, but it has a roundness bottom to it. So I'm going to bring in a taper here and see if we can try and get a similar looking shape. Then I'm going to bring in a shear here and alter the shape a little bit more to our reference here. Now, since the body has a similar curvature to it, similar to the head, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two more of these spheres here as our body. Now that we have an idea of what our body and our head's going to look like, I'm going to start on with the legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the spline and I'm going to try to fit it up the best I can to the reference here. Then we will actually start forming the legs to make it a little bit more realistic to the reference here. Now I'm going to grab some of the points here on the spline and manipulate them to make it a little bit more similar to the reference here. Now I'm going to copy and paste the spline here and then use those for the other legs here. Alright, so now that I have 4 legs here, I'm going to grab all of these splines and put them into a null here. And then I'm going to grab a symmetry object and then make the null a child of the symmetry object here. And that's going to make sure that we have similar looking legs both on the right and left side here. So if I manipulate one side, it's going to mirror that on the other side as well too. So now to make these splines actually look like legs, what I'm going to do is bring in a circle here and then bring in a sweep. Then I'm going to make the circle and spline a child of the sweep here. Then I'm going to select the circle and shrink down the size a little bit. And now we have the roundness that we're looking for these legs. Now I'm going to repeat the same process for every single one of these legs. Again, I'm going to bring in a circle I'm going to bring in a sweep here, and then I'm going to make it both the splines and the circles children's of the sweep, and then we're going to shrink it down again. Now, to make our legs a little bit different than the reference here, I'm going to go into the sweep and then play around with these settings here under caps, and then just again play around with it, see what I personally like the most as far as the shapes of the legs. I think I end up doing this for at least a good 30 minutes just playing around the legs, but I cut out most of it for you guys so you guys can just see really what I end up deciding to go with. And then with this project here, I was in a little bit more of a time crunch, so I wasn't completely happy with the legs we went with, but it was good enough. So I decided to go ahead with these here. And then, of course, throughout the project here, I just kind of was tweaking them a little bit more, which you will see a little bit later in this video. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into Quixel Bridge, and I'm going to look at a few different assets for both the legs here. I want to see if I could get some cool colors or just textures in general for the legs. And then we also need some sort of moss texture for the legs as well too. So if we pull up the reference again, we can see all this really cool looking green here on the legs. So I'm going to try to find something that is somewhat comparable to that, and then I'm going to apply it to the legs. Now, as I said before, I really haven't done a spider before. This is my first time actually doing one. So whenever I really don't have a specific direction to go in, sometimes I will play around with a few different settings or just a few different textures as well. So as I'm looking through Quixel Bridge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a few different options here, and then I'm going to apply it to the surface, see what kind of reaction I have within the render view here, and then, you know, pick and choose which direction I want to go with. Or if it completely does not work at all, I will obviously scrap it. So I always recommend grabbing a few different options, even if you feel like it's not gonna work out. I just grab it just to see what happens, so you at least know in the future, hey, you know, this texture does this, or this color looks like this within the render view, so you can at least know for future reference, even if it still doesn't work for this specific project. So, and of course, with a lot of this vegetation that we pull in, make sure you do go into the color here and turn off luminance, and then that's when we'll actually be able to see the colors and textures properly. And as I'm applying these textures here, it's pretty obvious that this isn't it at all. So at least I know what it's gonna look like on a figure similar to this, but yeah, I think we're going to pivot away from this. So now I'm going to do a similar approach here within the Redshift library. I'm going to look at a few different colors here, select a few of them, and see how it plays on the model here. Now, as we look at the reference again, instead of having a body, it actually has this really cool looking rose here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Redshift library here, find a rose. And then what I'm going to do is select this vegetation. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything but the flowers here. And then I'm going to individually delete each one of these roses until I have a single flower that I can work with. Now going back to the reference again, as we can see around the flower, it has this really cool looking, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a leaves vegetation. So we're gonna do something similar, but of course different. I'm going to look into Quixel Bridge here, see if I can find something similar as far as some sort of vegetation that would work around the flower. So we're going to take a peek here and see what we find. Now, as we pop up the render view again, what's extremely important, well, especially to me, is I want to make sure that I know what the model looks like with a little bit of light or just a light source in general. So usually what I'll do is I'll bring in an area light and then set it up as needed just to see how the colors look with light being present within the scene. And so sometimes I'll just play around with it, see what I like best, and then use that light source to kind of make my final decisions on what I want to do. So the legs are really not looking how I want them to look, so I'm going to continue to play around with them, see what I can maybe find, but I'm going to continue tweaking them here to see what kind of effect we can achieve with them. Now, as we look at the reference again, as we move closer to the body from the legs, we can see difference in color. The reference here has that orange that kind of goes into a brown. So I'm not going to do that here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sort of vegetation look from the body to the legs. And so I'm going to apply that here to the front leg and work my way back. So I'm going to bring in a sphere, and then I'm going to apply this moss texture here and do that for all of the legs here. And again, looking back at the reference, we do have that green moss going up the legs. So what I'm going to do is bring in a cylinder and wrap it around the legs so we get vegetation around the joints of the legs here. And I'm not I'm not saying that these spider legs have joints, but if you can see in the render view here, it does look like the legs actually have joints. So I'm just going to apply some of these cylinders here to the legs in a way that I see fit, I guess. So now, again, I'm just playing around with it. I really don't have anything set up for this, so I'm just kind of spitballing as I go. So I'm gonna apply a few of these cylinders and see what kind of effect we can get. Now I'm going to bring in a few more assets here to see if I can continue to work on the legs, to see if I can get something a little bit more better than what we currently have, but let's see what we can get here. And again, I'm just jumping into the sweeps here, going over to the cap section and Just again playing around with the settings to see what kind of look we can achieve. Now, as we look at the eyes in the reference here, you really can't see too much detail, especially at the angle that it's at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a sphere here, and I'm going to try and replicate that same look. So I'm going to play around with this a bit and see what kind of look I can achieve here. Now, as I'm playing with the eyes here, I have looked up a few different other images of spider eyes, and it looks like it's just different depending on the, I guess, subspecies of what it is. So, some of them have crazy looking four eyes, and then some of them just have looks like two here. So, I'm going to kind of stick with this here and again continue to play around with it and see what we can do. I'm not loving the eyes at all. Both the eyes and the face are kind of bothering me right now, but again, let's just see what we could do, continue with the process, and yeah, take it from there. And then as we look at the body here, again, it's just really almost like moist brown to it. So I'm going to look at a few different options in the Redshift library here. I think I end up going with a dark leather look. So I'm going to apply it here. And then I think we're just going to go for that for the time being. Yeah, that's that's not the best look, but I I guess we'll roll with it. So now, as I came back from a break here, what I ended up doing was I looked at the reference again and realized that our legs really didn't line up with how the reference legs look. So I'm gonna continue to tweak them here and see what we can do. I want to maybe just stretch it out so it's not as kind of clumped together. So I'm gonna just play around with that here and see what we can do. Now I'm going to hop into Quixel Bridge again. I found this cool looking atlas here. I actually found two of them. So what I'm going to do is open up a separate window within Cinema 4D, apply the atlas to a plane here. And then what I'm going to do is make these editable. I'm going to cut out each one of these shapes. They necessarily don't have to be perfect at all, so I just kind of cut them out as needed or to the best of my ability without getting too much in detail. So I find a couple different ones I like, and again I'm going to try and do a similar look to our reference here where they had a lot of that vegetation around the flowers. So I'm going to cut out a few of these and play around with it, see what kind of works best here. Now, as we're getting closer to the end here, I'm still I'm still not liking this face here, so so I'm gonna play around with the face a little bit more, the eyeballs as well too. I did notice in the reference, if you look pretty close, I know it's not pleasant to look at, but if you look close onto the face, it kind of has this separation at the forefront. It looks like almost like the mouth area. So what I'm going to do is bring in a cube. I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm going to bring in a bool and make both the cube and the head here a child of the bool, and then I'm going to kind of create that separation look. I think for the composition of the final piece, I will have the spider similar to our reference here, where you can kind of see the top of its body, basically kind of showing the flower or showing the body of the spider as a whole. And then it's going to be kind of sitting on this cool looking web. I know this is definitely not a traditional way of making the web. I want to do something a little bit different, similar to our spider here. It's not a traditional spider, so I wanted to play around with a cool looking effect and see what we can get. So to do the spider web here, I'm going to bring in a plane, and then I'm going to bring in a atom array. Then I'll make the plane a child of the atom array, and that's how we start to get this effect here. Now I'm going to bring in a bevel and make the bevel a child of the plane here. Then I'm going to bring in a few more bevels here and play with the subdivision. Of course, as you play with this offset setting, you do get a few different shapes here. So I'm just gonna play around with them a bit, see what I can get, and then pick one of them that I like. Now, to make it look like the spider actually has weight to it, what I'm going to do is bring in a displacer here and make it a child of the plane. And with this displacer here, that's going to kind of curve the plane a little bit. So as you can see, it kind of curves inward. So that would be ideal for what we're trying to go for. Again, trying to make the spider look like it's applying weight to the web. And of course, with playing around with these different settings, you can achieve so many different looks. So I think I like this one. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this here and then bring it into the same file that our spider's in, and then just line it up with the spider. Now, to make a kind of cool stylized web here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the Redshift glass. They have it's actually not a glass, it's kind of like a window, like a dirty window texture. So I'm going to apply that to the web here, because you do get that see-through look that of course a window provides, but I think the dirtiness texture that it gives makes it look a little bit more cool, or just interesting in general. So we're going to apply that to the web here and see what we get. So as is, we can hardly see it here. So what I'm going to do is bring in a plane and use that as a backdrop. Now I'm going to set the backdrop very close to the legs here, because I like the shadow effect it gives of, you can see the light coming from the left side of the image here, and then you can see the kind of the shadow that it makes as well too. So All right, so that's the end of the video here. This one was a an interesting one for sure. I wanted to do something for, the Halloween season, I guess. So I came up with a few different ideas originally. I was doing a haunted house. I was working on that for a while. I transitioned to a marble run within a bar setting with a whole bunch of ghosts. I wanted to end up rendering it and having it ready right before Halloween. However, I did a couple test runs, and unfortunately, it would take about 10 to 12 days to fully render out the animation. So I just didn't have a whole bunch of time on that. So I was trying to look around to see a few different projects I could work on. I did see this spider reference, so I decided to give it a shot. I would definitely do it different next time. I didn't really care for how it turned out. I think it's cool, and I definitely learned something from it, but I wouldn't be super excited to share this one or show this one off. So again, it was a cool experience and trying something new. Again, it was my first time doing that, so it was definitely something for sure. So but other than that, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, it is something different. Hopefully you either learned something, or you found that the web design was kind of cool. So again, hopefully you guys got something from this. Like always, if you guys want to see something or you have any questions, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section. Other than that, that's the end of the video. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.